Where's my D20? Gobbo!
Worth it.
Hello and welcome to Hobbs Horror Stories. I am Hob, your hobgoblin narrator, and today we have a great TTRPG horror story for you. Today's story involves the greatest boss ever that you should pledge your allegiance to. Feed him the souls of your enemies. No, what? What was I talking about? Why did I say that? Anyway, this story is all about Call of Cthulhu and the DM's mistake. The story comes from Reddit on r/D&D horror stories and was written by Crooked Angel 225. The title of today's story is Letting My Players Take One Item Cost Me an Entire Level. This ordeal took place between two campaigns of mine. I had always let my players use the same characters over my series of campaigns. I was their forever DM at the time, and it just made sense to allow their characters to grow and change as my stories continued. I just never expected it to bite me in the ass so brutally. I had written a campaign based around the works of H.P. Lovecraft, down to even having Cthulhu being the final boss. But I kept running into the same issue. One of Cthulhu's most prominent abilities is that you can't look him in the eyes, lest you'll be driven mad on sight. So my method around this was the Medusa approach. Allow the players to fight blind if they choose to. Eventually they completed the campaign and killed Cthulhu. This is where the mistake was made. I allowed them to cut out and store and loot Cthulhu's eyes. Approximately 2 years pass until I tell the group that I have a new story in the works and it's going to be based around dimension travel. Eventually, the group comes across a dimension unmistakably similar to that of Snowpiercer, a large train made up of hundreds of cars containing the remaining members of the human race. The objective was simple: right the wrongs done to the timeline by making the story proceed as it always has. They came to the solution pretty quickly. Everyone has to die. What I wasn't expecting is how easily they achieved this goal. They made a speedy travel up the train and get to a car where water is purified and supplied to the rest of the train. They take a solid 5 minutes and then proceed to say the single most soul-shattering sentence I've heard as a DM. Hey, I still have these eyes of Cthulhu. Why don't we just paint the water supply? My heart sank. Yeah, I guess you could do that. We can? Cool, let's do that. Then they proceeded to ground up the eyes of an eldritch horror into a paste, dump it into the water supply, and poison the entire train with unending madness. You travel the remaining cars and find nothing but death. Husbands have killed wives, fathers have killed daughters, and brothers have killed sisters. Yay, they beat the level in one fell swoop. OP, as a GM, whichever game you're playing or whatever system you're in, it can always be disheartening when a player undoes a situation that you had built up in your head as this really cool experience. I know just recently I had this happen to me. In a dungeon that I had made, I had planned to have all these mimics hiding everywhere and popping out of things, and then Gobbo, you all know Gobbo, he was playing a dwarf cleric who casted spirit guardians, and it went from surprise attack of the mimics to mimics getting surprise attacked everywhere by spirit guardians crushing each one by one.
Yeah, I did do that. But to be fair, you absolutely got me with that first one.
Now, the thing to remember whenever you are running a game is that you and your players are telling the story together. Yes, you may have an idea of how the story is going to go in your head, but ultimately, things are going to go wildly different than expected 99.5% of the time. The only advice I can really give you is to be ready for anything, and no matter what they choose, do still give them a really cool story and make things interesting for their characters. One note I have just based on the story is that if you were still hoping that they would get cool combat and everything, you didn't have to have everyone on the entire train die from madness. Madness works in many forms, and from them drinking this water, it could have just made it where now there are a bunch of super crazy serial killers now loose on the train that are coming after them. There are always other options. However, I saw a lot of Reddit comments on this story with people asking, whoa, why didn't you just say it doesn't work? And to me, that feels like a cop-out. That feels like the equivalent of your players casting a spell you didn't think of in D&D and you going, oh, well, now you're in an anti-magic field. Or, oh, there's a rune on the wall that suddenly activates and counterspells you. Like, no, I was not in an anti-magic field 2 seconds ago. Why is there anti-magic now? It can just make things way more difficult and a lot more frustrating for your players. So all of you in the comments saying that, you suck. Both Gabo and I have played with a DM like this before, and doing things like this makes it where your players get to the point where they don't even want to be creative anymore. They don't find joy in coming to the games. They don't find joy in even playing their characters because every time their character tries to do something, they pretty much get told to piss off because you have one way of doing things. You need to be flexible. You need to be open to new possibilities. So, to everyone still listening, the best advice I have for you is to just roll with it. When the game goes to chaos, have fun with it. That's the point in playing the game in the first place.
I think you covered most of it, but I'll add that when you're playing a tabletop game, you're not just playing a game, but telling a story together. You can't plan for everything, and the players write it just as much, if not, in some cases, more than you as the GM. And sometimes you just gotta run with that. Your players might even enjoy it more that way.
With that all out there, let's wrap up today's video and roll that outro. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you have any stories you would like to have read here on the channel, please share them to the email in the description below. Or if you want to see the Goblin Grotto and join our little goblin community, there is also a link to our Discord. If you could please like, comment, and subscribe, it would help us greatly to slay the monster known as the Algorithm. Thank you for your time from all of us here at Goblins and Gremlins.